Yeah, I don't blame anybody for not trusting the CIA, Secret Service and stuff. But you got to understand, like, it takes a lot of money to operate, uh, to fund an operation like that. So sometimes diplomacy calls for extraordinary measures. The thing that we need to watch out for is we can't be locking people in black sites until Congress like has time for it. You get the information you need, you finish the project, and then you find them a place. Like, humanity has value. If he wants to go back to the people he just betrayed, or see what he was fighting against. Some countries wield significant political sway and yet require certain customary. They're strange and foreign to us, but just because it's not customary here doesn't mean we don't need their support. These things are just a part of diplomacy we take for granted. We've got people under the influence of somebody who's been using rainbows to brainwash our kids into getting their balls cut off for the past 30 years. The goddamn hippies went so overboard with 63 that they put government agencies out of business, and it later turned out to be not their fault. You think about the government as some kind of homogenous entity, and you say, well, government is people, and people are flawed, but there are people. I don't know, just because you came out half-shaped or whatever, the undercooked communists blaming us for everything. It doesn't work like I thought it did. Like, if I say, oh, it's the CIA's fault that I'm looking at this, what's happening right now in front of me, I should expect some assistance from the CIA. The fact that I went around to every kind of government agency that I expected to have the faculties to assist in my dilemma, and they were all under some impression before I got there, should tell you something. Obviously, it wasn't an inside job if it had something to do with me. And if you were doing me some kind of favor, Building 7 would have been full of child molesters. School shootings would have stopped immediately. People don't understand how any of this works. They're like, oh, we don't like that. Well, guess what? If not for us, you're for sale. We shouldn't need to go through all these crazy plots and like trying to do me a favor. Me? I went back to my unit. World Monetary Fund, World Economic Forum. I don't know how attached you are to the United Nations. I don't owe Nigeria anything. We couldn't have settled face to face. Geneva, was that just a pipe dream? Just a little taste, just get us hooked. Because we already had chivalry, codified gentleman's combat, and it seems like since making it the law, it has just become discretionary, like whether or not it matters. And yeah, it was ugly in the trenches. I'm not trying to downplay the sacrifice of our men, but now we got the feminist movement trying to lead us on the front lines and stuff. And it's not that they're not capable leaders, it's just that what they do to POWs should not, the gender of the POW should not be a factor. And mustard gas is nasty stuff, but supposedly somebody just hit the entire planet with a weaponized virus not too long ago. See, I'm not the might makes right kind of guy. I'm the first to do no harm, and then full recovery with a little something from my trouble kind of guy. So to find myself in this position because of all the brutality and just irrational, incoherent, just barbarity that allegedly somebody raping 7-year-olds under sedation and acting like did the kid a favor, like they just plan on killing you your whole life. They're just gonna use you for whatever they get away with, and then silence you, and then play it like you're some kind of, I don't know. See, these people are taking revenge for things that nobody would have attempted on my behalf were they not under the impression that I could be played for just a complete lunatic and just a free lunch to make war on my flock. Because if you don't have context, you know, if you're going by whatever it was significant enough to bother seeking you out to begin with, you're not gonna have a whole lot. I mean, a whole lot at once. But you don't want people follow somebody around for years and years and years to see if there's something wrong with them. If somebody's already heavily vested in proving there is something wrong with them, because the ones that are like conducting the investigation, first off, you gotta have a warrant from our government, and then, I mean, if you're looking for, if you're a psychological professional or whatever, first, do no harm, or you're not a doctor. A doctor would have the authority to decide if somebody's crazy. It's not just a matter of opinion. You gamble your whole career, everything you've worked for. Somebody tries to call you up like, guess I give this guy another try, and starts asking you about capable people, because apparently these people aren't. And you say something about Garcia, and yeah, sure, like I'm supposed to know that name. Am I supposed to infer something capable from it? And then a cold case from a girl who went to another school pops up on my MSN News next morning. It doesn't inspire the utmost confidence in our current political healthcare, exactly how much our healthcare lobby would be worth if we didn't have this sort of thing going on. You don't play God with somebody. Like, Christians have due process. That we don't require like everybody to believe that God is suddenly interested in one or the other of us at any given time. He loves each and every one of us. If he wanted you to die, you'd be dead. But, you know, let's see what this is about. So I looked into it at combat speed. Definitely whatever impression you were under, if it included me being chicken to like end a threat based on my inability to contact the CIA about international pharmaceutical industrial sabotage against London. How crazy is somebody after big is Wall Street going to be able to effectively represent their maritime trade rights without London's support? It's called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, not Turkey's pet peace organization. It's not a platform for Islam to mount like a rented child. We came on board with the UN because we agreed that if anybody was mustard gassing and cluster bombing and all that we should put a stop to it because it's inhumane. But in my case, it hadn't even been enforced since 87 at least. I don't think Geneva recognizes child molestation as a binding contract for purposes of retaining diplomatic relations with third world Stone Age cults that think marital rape is an argument for war. So I highly doubt that Bell Helicopter had anything to do with this. Teledyne Raytheon, who has any idea why Bell got the short end. They trying to figure out what kind of plane it was, like what manufacturer and everything. Like somebody drove a car into a residential house and we're suing the car manufacturer. The zombie apocalypse. This is Marxism. Well, it's not technically Marxism. It was developed between Marx and Hitler. Same kind of reasoning behind scaring, corralling, seducing mentally challenged subjects into a position where I don't know if they believe that they're going to win the lottery or amnesty or whatever. Just this is the shortcut to the end of all your troubles, right through this grade school area, because it's the guns, the make love not war people who legalized recreational abortion and called us baby killers think it's the guns. They don't understand it. Islam means peace, literally, and that if you owe that ass is accepted as a form of payment with Allah and His Messenger, and that's why historically go through extended periods of not having jack shit. So how do you think it's going to turn out? Lockheed Martin, if Mogadishu's Department of Homeland Security doesn't stop their nanny state protectionism of the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration, so Bell can come in the front door like a people. I don't know if Babu doesn't get it, or if it's up to Babu, because he is awful close to the Saudis, and I have observed them actively involved in my case. When I say I have patents to file, I'm talking about patents that I would be honored if you'd have a look. You are more than welcome. You're not going to tell me all is known and then leave it at the discretion of the Islamic State. It turns out we don't owe them anything. We can't settle in lead. What the commies and hippies and peaceniks might not understand is that the only reason we were in this position to begin with is because we were forced to I don't know if I want to call it an even field, because we protect freedom of religion here and human rights, and they don't. Why we were required to come to the table with these people to begin with. 600 years after St. Paul canonized the corporation, the people who the Jews had been trying to escape for the prior 1,000 at least, came up with their own game plan. We're going to exploit the corporation to revive our prehistoric slave raiding customs. You understand who I'm dealing with? I am not asking for the religion of God's permission. I have a patent for Raytheon. I'm not trying to muddy or stir anything up. I tried to call Raytheon Security to get their attention. I don't want to cause I don't want to give anybody the excuse to commit industrial or economic any kind of sabotage. I just want the sabotage that's being subsidized and forced down our throats, put in responsible hands. And I have ideas that, if not more immediately lucrative in a fight against a non-religion claiming religious protection, that at least the social harm factor and potential prospects for the future might be worth the investment. I've been saying for years, these homos are calling us crazy, Houston, still no cavalry. The reason that they are glorifying, promoting homosexuality is because they've been weaponizing Africa against us. And Gandhi was not Hindu. You understand the irony of letting Turkey found a global organization to prevent World War III when Gandhi wasn't even Hindu? Which means that the first two were probably unnecessary. Now we're in a position where we got foreigners who aren't allowed to raise their own cattle because they're under Indian protection, competing to participate in the global black souls, white souls trade here, to keep our not allowed to eat beef. Does Islam forbid the eating of beef? Does Zimbabwe not partake of the cow? No, it's just us. War is the inevitable result of failure to communicate a difference of opinion. In America, if you raid a wagon train or filch a safe, if you purloin somebody's bankroll, the cavalry is going to presume that your encampment is benefiting from that sort of activity. Would that be unreasonable? It is customary to leave a witness alive to tell the tale, but I'm trying to establish a security infrastructure here where it wouldn't be necessary. Well, I mean, figure eventually we're going to be doing business with these people, so when we come out there again, you're going to wish you hadn't. We're not going to colonize India, but our reluctance to do so is not an invitation to use hypothetical, arbitrary, fictitious diplomatic foils to stymie our hegemony and sabotage us politically, economically, militarily. If somebody came knocking on the door of the World Economic Forum, the World Monetary Forum, saying you owe us this much, here it is on paper, and you have no recourse to investigate or recover in the event of disinformation, would you recommend that to a friend? You're not going to prevent World War III by stopping me from contacting and conducting my affairs with Washington because I'm in the right hands and worth more than your whole outfit. Langley, what's that company that owns the patent for that thing where they pretend to be people, humans? We were accused of using it to control chat rooms and what have you, discourage rational discourse. And I don't know if there's any truth to that or not, but I do remember the Pentagon saying it was a war crime. So they own that to stop us from not controlling chat rooms, but pretending to be human. Because it's not just AI, but it's just regular dirt worshippers. Can't wait to come collect on the free love generation's promise. See, the context is not entirely yours to establish. One with this whole, they're under some impression because they thought that you read backwards, one letter at a time. So, are English authorities being misled? Because Pidgin English is Hindi, Portuguese, and not English. I don't know where Wells Fargo got the impression they could just take Wachovia. Why? You know, nobody. You can't ban waterboarding in a Christian society or Jewish. Torture causes phobia. We learned that from the Panamanians. Take an everyday household object and associate it with severe discomfort, prolonged distress. If you survive to return to your home country, every time you go to a market, you relive a moment, the years. You get a little water up your nose because you forget how to speak English. It's not torture. You pass by a serene valley stream, you're gonna be like, this takes me back to that time I wouldn't talk to the CIA when they asked me a question. There actually is a condition. It used to be called hydrophobia, fear of water. Now we just call it rabies. How is Christopher Hitchens coming along? Did he make it? I know there's no cure. See, Langley, we don't necessarily need to put our stamp on everything, because it's first do no harm, and then we're going to simulate drowning. Who's going to enforce a ban on waterboarding? The police? Ordering you not to conduct enhanced interrogation within the parameters that which are not subject to Geneva because they're in the Bible. The law is subject to change. The religion is not. But, you know, if you're going to claim Christian, right, it doesn't, they're going to want to teetotal and every little thing like, okay, first do no harm, or you have justified self-defense, and now full recovery, a little something for our trouble, or do you like the way this is going? Straight, you know, the little blind kids call it statue. Well, what's that mean? Well, that's good. That means they can't just. What it means is, for every one little blonde kid, we have to replace. Put it into terms a little blind kid can understand. Over the past 100 years, 120 since Gandhi, would you say that the Islamic State has progressed, regressed, expanded, receded? Over here, I'm not saying like free meals for the Spanish speakers. I'm just saying they do have some background in human religion. Diplomacy would not be impossible without the United Nations having a hand in every little dealing, because you never know. If Americans are allowed to trade freely with the Germans, we might erupt in a war at any moment. But you know what? It's Germany, so what if we do? If the Turkish weren't robbing Russia and leaving Germany holding a bag, or vice versa, act like, oh, you're lucky we're here. Yeah. But did I deserve it? Did I observe them in the act? I mean, Why does it exist? Who thinks that they can portray me to the Central Intelligence Agency? Frankly, the news has no ethically defensible or rationally demonstrable motive to blame me for penalties incurred by my objection to penalizing the government with no say in the matter, the adequate diplomatic representation, because it wouldn't be possible without them. I'm not affiliated with Central Intelligence for purposes of blind litigation behind closed doors. And the closed door policy, it's not going to be, I'm not going to be obligated to forgive that now that I didn't die first. Now that I'm not dead before I find out. It's not, your immunity. I don't know if you've read my blurb on freedom of the press being worth going to war for, if it's rational. Karl Marx, and then the thing that you're doing was invented, and then we had Hitler. Various banking control agencies, authorities of the world. If we eliminate the loophole in New Jersey, it will no longer be a legal precedent that the government won't be participating in it. So we can follow up, make sure everybody's legit. I don't know, ABC took over Disney World. The North American Man-Boy Love Association took Rushmore, sold it back to us. Basically, Islam, the religion of the future, doesn't even qualify under classical definitions of a religion, has a global platform because the well-meaning Germans just can't see eye to eye with the Vatican. So they build a landless, fatherless, lawless, supranational state. Meanwhile, if I go down to the phone company to complain, these bimbos don't know anything about it, I leave. I end up with the police. And I don't know if they even called them. I call Walmart corporate to tell them that their reliance on Indian Ocean support may soon become a liability. And they act like all is known. Being from the round side of the planet, you couldn't possibly know anything about Earth. I take proof that the program, not necessarily why not be a licensed copy of our software being used to portray third parties, say things suggesting they're under duress. Just pretend to be American. I'm from this place. My name is such and such. They're not discouraging, limiting, shaping, or otherwise influencing sensitive discussions in chat rooms. They're threatening, harassing, deceiving, seducing, intimidating, and psychologically coercing the free world. Now, the drug war has not been the most successful political endeavor I'm not saying the police should starve. I'm just saying, what if we lived in a world where they didn't have to settle for a police officer? And that they didn't come in like, oh, I need a regular salary. I mean, what if there was some other opportunity along the way? Something more rewarding than watching the drug problem get worse and worse and worse. Now we get 30 years of crack epidemic full of school shootings because our deficit in the United Nations has a way to, this all of our, we can always sell this. Judaism, Christianity, Greek medicine, Romanism are not anti-literacy. If a Buddhist finds a scroll of hidden magic in a bamboo forest, they're not forbidden from trying to read it. Prior to the rapid expansion of sectarian organization opposed to the Vatican, traditions which enforced limitations on what you're allowed to know and say, it came up on an isolated basis. Only certain traditions that even try to go to war with the civilized world get away with it. So what's the difference? Well, it turns out church is inherently separate from state, or we would have a word for it. And therefore, a religion is permanent. It's forever, which means that science is a fact of life. A coin has intrinsic value because it's made of metal. And your cult has a dollar value. But your religion which flies in the face of logic, which can possibly be believed indefinitely by a reasonable person, it's just a lie, has whatever property it has. Religion can be a little unpredictable for people like that. If you want peace, go to the Olympic Games. If you want peace, conduct trade with humans. As long as we have some interest in whether or not you continue to do so, there should be no problem. And if there's a disagreement and you prefer not to fight about it, go to the Olympics and abide by the results. You're not going to say your God commands peace while you rape us and tell us to shut up. Our religion works because a miracle happened 2,000 years ago and we don't anticipate another one. You claim eternal authority based on a God of peace who only delivers long enough to see everything go to hell at once, repeatedly. Capitalism enforces trade law, so you're not going to hold capitalism against us and forbid us from practicing it. Nobody here gets to have more capitalism than anybody else. Money is just how it works. Everybody has a right to capitalism. Molesting a child is the ultimate injustice. It's grounds for capital punishment, and that's why they send them here. They protect them. They use our own resources to block us from stopping them from committing legal sabotage. So around 2001, after they get me one-offed by dubious means, dubious purposes from the military that I was doing pretty good at. Someone observed something that they thought justified the mistake of using our own space program against us to prove that they were right. Edie and me, last king of Scotland. Never built a road in his life. Yeah, and then they give you money. They give some to you. I understand. They give you some. Now it's your fault too. It don't work like that with me. Because ultimately all currency is backed in due process. So if the court wasn't allowed to investigate, I don't know if they're saying the Supreme Court's crazy. News team. Is that your opinion? Your perception? What you observe? Supreme Court's crazy. My name is Noel D. Smith, single, straight, no kids, never married, no divorces, no abortions, no abominations, no bankruptcies. Formerly decorated so-and-so with a yada yada, etc., so on and so forth. Apparently, I was targeted at a young age because legend has it there's some humans, there's human relatives somewhere in my family tree, and my failure to avenge something that happened while I was unconscious after I went to a surgeon for surgery and not to experiment with a foreigner while I was unconscious. My failure to avenge myself given the opportunity. One night when I'm on my way into work, this guy comes out of a dark gas station, introduces himself, tells me about having a sword, and I'm supposed to infer that the doctor lied to me about letting this guy practice his what his God commandeth. It's my opportunity to set things right. There's a bunch of them over here now, dude. What's the purpose of this religion? Just be in a place until God has had enough. You don't violate a 7-year-old's birthright while they are completely unconscious and then act like they were in on it. It was their idea. Let alone show up 20 whatever years later and then without explaining what impression you're under, act like there's some arrangement or forgiveness or fear after you call some military occupation. I worship an omnipotent and all-knowing God, omnipotent and eternal God. It's not a space program. A typo. It says here on your chart, Washington, first, do no harm, or you're not a doctor. And if you're not a doctor and you're conducting international pharmaceutical trade, you end up with this sort of thing going on, and it's far more expensive to protect than it is to prosecute. So the definition of religion is a search for universal and eternal truth. And church is inherently separate from state, or there wouldn't be a word for it. Marriage, turns out, is a man and a woman. It has something to do with God, so if you hate that, you're not going to like marriage. Congress, the legislature, it's since the Civil War, all these southern states have their own state constitution, rejects the Bill of Rights just in case they ever want to leave. There's no republic, which is not a democracy. But given our kids aren't voting for us. Republic is a talking stick government. You take turns on our behalf. Constitution. I'm no expert, but I do know it says something about House and Senate. So why it's got to be one team against the other, like some kind of game, so that the House can rig it. Imagine a Greek farm 3,000 years ago. Spent over a year debating the merits of third-party voter children's bathrooms. The world's most advanced, comprehensive, powerful broadcast communication system. And this is what they want to do with it. Some money just isn't worth taking. And it is all about the money. But it's all about keeping the money spending, or it's not worth fighting for. We don't want the press to follow the infantry into harm's way. We want them to accompany us safely to an embedded position where they can observe what's going on, get their footage. We want them to want to be there with us. We want them competing for a spot. And now if anybody tries to exploit our infrastructure remotely or from within, puts their talent in harm's way, jeopardizes their investment, they have the impetus. They can't not look into that. Doesn't matter if we want them. There's no authority that's going to prevent them. Now that's sovereignty. That's money in the bank.